Alrighty, it looks like we are operational here. Let's get our little show on the road on the 7th of July in our current year of doom. The one big beautiful bill, all smiley face Trumpistas in Congress. Don't forget, TucanWordPress.com, loads of freebie stuff that's available there, free sharing for anybody that wants to have them. Okie doke. We're in kind of generally pleasant weather here in the Pacific Northwest, as opposed to the catastrophic dome and fires and floods and crap that are going along in the rest of the country. Weather Service gutted to the point where they're really bad at making predictions about things. So what could go wrong? Anyway, we are continuing our ongoing analysis of Titans, the dinosaur book. This is our 100th installment of that little puppy. And this week's episode goes into their waffling on proteinaceous molecules. And I'm suddenly getting a program file popping up. Suddenly, it's disappeared. Okay, there we go. That I think is rather intriguing. I'll be able to put the full text of the little puppy up because it is an open access one. The discovery of these little phenomenon. They're clearly bringing it up as soft tissue issues, and dates from 2021. And these were molecules that are found in dinosaur eggs, which curiously their footnote for it misspells as Cretaceous, R-E-A-T, Creaceous. Somebody was not accurate on the mark. In fact, in this little segment, some of the notes, they allude to a book, several, but they don't actually the details of the book in the first reference. Farther down the road, do you actually encounter the book? I was kind of confused because there were other works that they had cited by the same author, and it turns out it was a new book that they were adding on. So a lot of inattentive scholarship going on down in footnotes. But this paper proved to be particularly delightful because it was quite clear enough about what the nature of these proteinaceous molecules were, that they are degraded components of things, not full out molecules that you would find if you had like a fresh egg. Very late at night or very early morning, depending on your point of view. It's just midnight here in Spokane. So how early or late that is depends on you. I'm a night owl by nature, so I'll be up for quite a few more hours anyway. I'm typically in the summertime when the sun is up so early, I'm encountering dawn by the time I go to bed, so I'm on vampire hours. Anyway, this diamond paper is very explicit about not only that these are deteriorated fragments, but that their preservation is due to their living in an open air environment, subaerial, and not underwater. So nothing about it would correspond to a flood scenario. Oopsie doodles, what a pity. I'm also throwing in a little sidebar that kind of is a callback to a previous thing that I had been alluding to, and it came up again because Dapper Dino has been doing a series on it, which is the paper from Joel Leineweber, Microraptor Reconstructed as a Bird. It's a creationist paper, and Dear Dapper has gone through in meticulous detail. I had spotted and alluded to, I think in a way earlier episode, how the paper is riffing off of a selected data set where the dinosaurs they're dealing with are basically like Allosaurus bunch rather than the Maniraptorans. Well, it turns out in this newer iteration, apparently Leineweber has been delivering like a lecture on this, which is the thing that Dapper has been analyzing, and he trots out some newer material that actually alludes to some of these Maniraptor and dinosaurs. And so I'm going to be putting a link up to Dapper's video. And also one newer paper, Balanov et al. 2016 on theropod burn brain changes, got alluded to by Leineweber's lecture talk. that is also open access. So I'll be putting the link up to that. And between that material and the stuff that you can get off of Dapper, you'll discover in no uncertain terms why Leineweber's analysis is a pile of dingoes' kidneys, and it's fun to watch. And that's quite up to date in terms of, I mean, this is, just this current year, that they're still trying to spin all this stuff. So we have a part 2, which is relating to a 2023 post by Tas Walker, bless his sweet little heart. This one is on the incredible Iguazu Falls of South America. This is at creation.com, and I will be putting a link up to this little puppy. And it cites one paper, which is from 2010. So 13 years earlier, talk about up to date. And he's trying to dragoon, not the paper, but Walker, is trying to dragoon Iguazu Falls, which is down in South America, into the flood. So he's dangling this little paper, which, while fairly detailed on the very specific geological network of the falls, wasn't delving into the paleontology, geology of the site. Well, that doesn't mean there ain't such things. It just is that Walker isn't presenting it. So we'll just fill all of that in. There's a paper from 2006, Limarino and Spalletti. There's another one from 2011 by Brea and Zokal, and on very early elements of the thing, Vargas et al. In 2020. That one, unfortunately, I can only give a partial link to the ScienceDirect.com thing, but it's an extended abstract and it has some of the references and the like in it that dates the main geology back to the Devonian. And then there's lots on the Permian end of things, including some quite recent stuff that are explored by Kern et al. 2021. Again, another partial on that, and Scherer et al. 2023. Link on that little puppy. The upshot is that there's a long-standing geology of the site, which Walker is making a point not to link the reader to enough information that they would be distracted by the facts, even though the information wasn't difficult to find. And one that I do have as a full-length paper is just the capper on my Sunday, which is that there's a bunch of layers and layers and layers of volcanic ash falls in the deposits involved, which is preposterous. If it was coming from the big slosh, how do you have airborne volcanic ash during the big flood? Same thing as with the stuff from the Columbia basalt here in Spokane. So anyway, there's a 2023 paper by Philip et al., which I'll be linking to, which will go into that little aspect. So it's a further reminder. Let's see, what are this? Let's kind of pull some of these little things up here. The Devonian of the Parana Basin in Brazil. That you can look that little puppy up when it's going into stuff on the paleogeography of how this is fitting into larger context, as well as the chronology of things. These papers are really quite delightful. The paleogeography of the upper Paleozoic basins of southern South America. This one is quite a nice little paper. Goes into quite extensive detail, beautiful background charts that's breaking down the various layers and the stuff dating to what and how this is connecting up with deeper contexts. And then the final chart in that going into the Permian period. So there is a paleogeography that the geologists are quite capable of working out. And there's absolutely nothing as a counterpart to that. Oh, yes, here's another one from the Kern paper, Sedimentary Geology, that goes into details on the paleo drainage basins and the like. This would be one of the kinds of detailed charts on here. When you put all of this stuff together, at least the papers from this century, yeah. Well, this is reflective of the tendency to pounce on current technical literature. Remember, some of these things from 2021 and that are just a decade or more earlier. But there's an awful lot of examples that we see, and Sarfati and Tay are dropping into that mode where they're dribbling material that's relatively recent. You find a lot of stuff like this goes on at the Discovery Institute, where they'll pounce on a paper. They're not going to be dealing with geology or anything because that doesn't interest them. But they do deal with other matters. The Philip paper, that's the one that you will be getting in a full text matter. And it's got a whole bunch of wonderful background details working out the paleogeography and how the evidence builds up to that. Now, nothing in principle would be preventing any of these clowns in the creationist movement of working out a detail of what the hell they think is going on. And or rather, the only thing that's preventing them from doing that is they don't have a model. So one of the chapters that's going to be the one that I'll be tackling, the scaffolding of it has already been done by Jackson, the Noah's Lost Worlds, is going to be diving into this paleogeography matter and the fact that the creationists have never gotten anywhere close to working out in detail what they think happened as individual creationists, let alone a consensus view that builds up a detailed model of even when the flood is turning on and off. So it's all pretty much operating at the very simplistic cartoon level, where they cannot explain the detailed topography of the pre-flood world and then the cataclysm of the flood and what's exactly is happening and what's being uplifted and what's being shifted. No, it's just a nonsensical mess. You find exactly the same problem in the material on the cosmology stuff. I just finished up the section on the polonium halos for the new book. That's a little funky, little bit about that. Turns out to kind of be fairly restricted. It's basically Robert Gentry, Mark Armitage to some extent, and mainly lately Andrew Snelling. And he's just been beating this thing to death in repeated postings that have gone over for decades. And it's essentially the same shtick over and over and over and over and over again. When in fact, there are perfectly rational explanations of why these little ghostly radioactive smudges occur. And it relates to how radon, which is part of the decay chain between uranium and lead, that it generates polonium, and it's a highly diffusive gas. It can slide around through little fissures and the like. And so the idea would be that little components of this decay chain over time can get kind of bubbly to the side. And so you end up with an isolated thing from the radon on, which produces these isolated polonium halos. There are also other ones that are not isolated. So it's really funky to see how the scholarship is maneuvered on it. In the last decade or so, Snelling has started to kind of pay attention to the fact that there's an upper temperature boundary on any rock formations, because when you get up, he puts a positive 150 degrees centigrade. But in fact, when you get up to like 850 degrees centigrade, it's the annealing boundary where the temperature of the thing basically cancels out whatever stuff that you might have had a polonium halo. Same way that temperatures above a certain level reset magnetic signals. And so it means that the very existence of polonium halos means that the Earth's temperature could never have gotten ridiculously high. And the problem is that there's all sorts of means by which the temperature would have gotten ridiculously high if young Earth creationism, accelerated radioactive decay, compressed chronology were actually true. And so this has been popping up in the various videos that Gutsick Gibbon has done on this subject. So it's an intriguing little trail to maneuver through here, and how relatively small the group is that are kind of pushing it and never giving up on it in the creationist community, and then the smaller group of hangers-on that just kind of repeat the thing. The halo thing is in fact outlived some of the characters involved that have pushed the thing. John Morris is dead now, and uh, it's a fascinating little niche bit. Then some more little details that I've been sorting out the information on is the material on the Hovind theory, which is Kent Hovind's screwball version of ice canopies. He involves kind of an ice comet that comes down and does a whole bunch of sticky, stupid things. He's not been very detailed on it. He keeps alluding to it in his various lectures, but as something stopped him writing a learned monograph on the subject, other than the fact that he's only semi-literate and has problems spelling, let alone thinking anything through. That would be kind of a bit. And that will also be a little teeny sidebar about the Lost Squadron of World War II airplanes that are in ice in Greenland, and that's a thing that Hovind hasn't been unique in pushing it, but certainly has been one of those that tends to present it. It pops up peripherally in the non-bottom feeder literature. And so all that's going to be discussed as well. So making a point of picking off all the little ups and downs of things. There's a bunch of tropes, comet decay and magnetic fields of planets. And of course, some of them have gone extinct, pretty much shrinking sun, which Kent Hovind still pushes, neutrino mysteries and the like, that show up on various lists of creationist things that they list as the serious problems for the evolutionary paradigm, which they use as just a stand-in for standard science. So we're wanting to make a point that we're picking off all of these things and covering them all in the course of the story. About half of them got covered in volume 1, and the other remaining ones, the main cosmological ones, are going to be dealt with in this volume 2 part. So it will be fairly comprehensive on this matter. And the one thing that really shows up is, although you get stray creationists bumping into particular literature, remember, in measuring generally, that creationists really are missing 90% of the data field. And the cosmology area is just as much in that ballpark. That cutting edge stuff that's showing up in monthly notices of the Royal Astronomical Society and Astronomy and Astrophysics and these various journals that are all, virtually all, open access, even current works, often typically, but certainly within a year of publication, they're open access. It's surprisingly thin, the coverage of a lot of this stuff. And so as I've tackled topics of galaxy formations, star formations, what's the oldest of particular things of galaxies, what are the material that's covering like the first 500 or 600 million years after the Big Bang, of which a chunk of it really is just a narrow window from like 300 million years on as you move past the dark ages into the point when stars are actually starting to form. And what information that we're having lately from Gaia and the James Webb Telescope and all of that, to get all of this into a coherent order. And once in a while, I'm encountering a creationist bumping into one of these technical points. And in the book that we will be doing, where we'll be covering when they're intersecting with the actual data field. So it's going to be, I think, a highly useful summary of an awful lot of topics in a way that will build on volume 1 and tidy it up to the point where between Jackson and I will be, the attitude is, here, we've done it. We've written the book on the subject that, yeah, there will be a few little wrinkles that will come downstream. There's not a colossal amount of novel material that's generated from creationists over the years. They just keep repeating the same tropes over and over again, like Snelling and the polonium halos, that they'll just keep repeating. The latest issue, as I pointed out last week, of Acts and Facts is retreading a lot of older material or just kind of buffing up some stuff. There's only one of the articles in there, and they're now down to a bi-monthly to boot. They're running out of steam, I think. And Joel Duff had done a video. His latest video is stuff suggesting that the attendance at the Ark Encounter may be flagging, and that they did a really shameless paid promotion shtick on Fox Trump Pravda, where the Fox and Friends people apparently were going to the Ark Encounter and burbling over how wonderful all of it is. And we can be reasonably confident that nobody on Fox and Friends got within 1,000 miles of fact checking anything that they saw at the Ark Encounter. So, but it does give an indication of that close cultural context with that conservative network that Foxtron Pravda would represent. You also see some of the Ark Encounter ads show up on YouTube videos as well. There's one with some cheery little giraffes, computer animated giraffes that are extolling the wonders of the Ark Encounter. I mean, it's not a bad commercial. I mean, I can't fault them for the dramatic architecture, the generic skill of things. They're operating at a fairly sophisticated level. The mechanics of both the Creation Museum and the Ark Encounter are really top drawer in terms of technical operations. It's just the content that's plain unadulterated claptrap. What can one say? So let me put up our patrons to help everybody, remind everybody, although I've got a weird thing that suddenly has happened to, wait a minute, stupid little, trying to close the stupid window of the ad that wants to pop up for their freebie display version. Somehow or other, it's altered the image a bit on what I had, and I even replaced it with the original file, and it doesn't want to correct for it. So I'm assuming that their little version is just stupid. So like tits on a bowl, very, very not useful. Anyway, the text is up on screen. There's suddenly a smaller. It was extending over to the second page. There was no reason why it was doing that. It wasn't doing that the previous times I've shown it. So it just goes to show you how idiotic and useless some of Microsoft Word's applications can be, especially if they're in the freebie context, because I can't figure out how to correct it. Even when I replaced it with the original uncorrected file, it's still displaying it this way. So it's like remembering what I didn't want it to remember. So anyway, that's more advertisement for not liking some of Word, although I do write all my material. No, I do not want to save this, and yet it won't do any good because it will pretend that that was the version I saved anyway. So what can I say? Maybe it'll correct itself after next week. I don't know. I don't care. At least the information was up on screen. So anyway, I think the papers that I will be putting up, even the abstract versions of the various things on the waterfall, are enough to give you a sense of the material. But that capper paper from Philip in 2023 will be more than enough to really dive into a lot of the little fiddly bit details of the stuff. And everybody that gets familiar with this material is therefore miles ahead of creationists in this area. And if you bump into a creationist, you should ask for them to be specific and be detailed. How come, if their model is so splendiferous, that they have never progressed to the point where they can offer as detailed an accounting of their model, talking about specific deposits and drainage patterns? There would be rivers, there would be whole context of stuff going on in the pre-flood world, and then the reconfiguring. They can't even agree on what the pre-flood world was like in generic terms. Some like to have the Pangea supercontinent as the pre-flood world. The Ark Encounter crowd go farther back to Rodinia, so they're implying that the continents are shuffling around into the Pangea format kind of during the flood, and then shifting into our present format post-flood, which is an awful lot of that heat that would be interfering with the formation of paleo. It would be canceling out any previously formed paleo halos, which supposedly they're all formed in creation week rocks. They're not part of stuff that's occurring after that, although some of the examples, quite a few examples, actually belong into a time that would be theoretically put in within the flood. So yet more difficulties of how none of this is ever going to make any sense. one can plow through most all of Andrew Snelling's stuff on polonium halos is available open access in one form or another, either in PDFs or in main text stuff. So anybody that wants to dive into the stuff, Snelling is very verbose. He's written very long papers, just the stuff he did on the Grand Canyon when he was schlepping around picking up rocks, and he has multiple papers that he's just looking in fiddly bit details with all the rock crystals as though it means something important, but he's not terribly good at explaining all what that is. So anyway, let us put our little advert up for our Rocks for Their book. Boop, boop. And come on. We've been a little slow. There we go. And then we flip back over to share screen. And get the show on the road. And as usual, anybody that does watch this who isn't subscribed, please subscribe. Please like if you agree. If you dislike, put a thumbs down, as the case may be. All the links to all the books are available in the description every week. And the link to our Patreon is in the links every week. So if you can scrape a bit to help out, I thank everyone who has stuck with the old RJ all of this time. Let anybody who needs to know about it know about it. I can say that I am certainly not operating at the level of familiarity. Jackson Wheat's videos get way more. Of course, they're much more professionally done than mine. I freely admit that, and I'm a less personable old fart. But nonetheless, there is the source methods to get clearly indicated, and we will be continuing to keep track of all the incoming creationist material that we're bumping into, as well as stuff that Joel Duff comes at, because he comes at it more directly from following them on a first-name basis. He attends their conferences and things like that. Is absolutely invaluable observer in this area, but I'm plowing at it from the scholarly angle, and what is often just as important as to what they do discuss is what they don't. And that's one of the reasons why it's so critical to do these reference bibliographies for these works that don't actually have one, so that one can measure just exactly what they're bumping into and what they aren't, which you won't know unless you actually dive down source by source by source. So everybody that has a particular interest in these areas, nothing stops you from doing videos like me to dive in and examine these things at the same kind of level and focus in on particular areas of expertise to document material, especially in areas that have not been properly documented, so that everybody gets to follow up and learn stuff. So anyway, we're just coming up on a half hour. Thank you, Vesta, for being in the audience there. And no point in boring everybody for just airtime to fill. So we will curtail this one. Everybody stay super duper safe. There are so many mucky things happening that have to be on your toes to stay safe these days. But at the same time, keep on recalling that we live in a time that has an access to information that is extraordinary. and we outnumber the stupid people, even though for the moment too many of them are in political power. And we need to go through the travail to where people retool, and hopefully we'll start embodying more of the source methods approach to things, which could make it much, much more difficult for these stupid people to get elected. So anyway, everybody stay safe. Watch out for the wooden penguins, and we will see you next week, which will be another Casey Luskin week. Au revoir.